Rouen. Stéphane Zagdanski came here with his daughter Abigail, and he's going to talk to us about antisemitism, not just from France, but all over the place. He wrote 20 books, 20 published books in France. That's the latest one that he wrote. It's in French, but I think I hear that with ChatGPT, you could get it translated. Not as good as somebody else would, but it's okay. So Stéphane studied all the Jewish writing, the Torah, the Gemara, the Zohar, the Tanya. Did you study Tanya as well? Tanya as well.
A little bit.
And there's a Jewish type of thinking, which is completely different from the normal Aristotelian logic, which goes 1 + 1 is 2. It's 2. It's not 2.5. It's not 2 3/4. Just 2. The Jewish thinking goes into many different thinking of. You have the drash, you have the pshat, you have the remez, you have the sod. You have many different ways, and then of course every morning we say we have 12 other ways of studying the Gemara. Rabbi Yishmael Omer, Shlosh Midot, with the 12 different ways we can understand life, the Gemara, the Torah, and life in general. So he uses these tools to study different things. So he studied a lot of the French political leaders. Maybe you could study Donald Trump one of these days. But he studied de Gaulle in France. He studied Strauss-Kahn, who was a finance minister. And he also studied a lot of, and he wrote about great authors of French literature like Proust and Kafka. No, that was Kafka was not French. He was Czech. And who else? Céline. And those political personalities. So he wrote also about certain Torah concepts which are very, very difficult to understand. The purity and impurity that we find in the Torah. And with this same analytical tool, he was able to study antisemitism in a different way. Just like we all remember how the leader of the UN gave a reason right away that this happened. It happened, and we understand why. And he gave his own reasons. So let's hear and applaud Stéphane.
Thank you very much, Bernard. And I'd like first to thank to Rabbi Lipsik.
He's not here today.
Okay, but I keep him here. And of course, Giti, and of course, my aunt and my uncle, Sarah and Bernard Zagdanski, who made this trip possible, and who had the first idea of this conference and this trip. So I'm very happy to be amongst you tonight. Please excuse my English. It's my first time. I made a lot of lectures like this one, but never in English. It's the first time in English. I tried to be not too bad. And thank you, everybody, to be here. I'm very happy to. Thank you. I'm very happy to be amongst you. So, I'll begin with 2 pictures. So the title of my lecture tonight is Antisemitism in Europe. Why, where, who? 3 questions. The 2 first pictures I wanted to show you, one was a book in Arabic that Saal, the IDF, found at the beginning of the Gaza war in Gaza, saying in Arabic, the end of the Jews, by people from the Hamas, saying we are going to kill all the Jews. That's what they want, that's what they wrote. They wrote it, the end of the Jews. The other picture It's a text, you see the translation in English, by a very famous philosopher, living philosopher, Italian, whose name is Giorgio Agamben. He's very famous in Europe. And he wrote this post on internet. It was in last September, and he called it the end of Judaism. And it was very philosophical. It was not anti-Semite. It didn't sound anti-Semite, but the meaning of his text was, because of Israel, because of Zionism, Judaism is going to die. And what I wanted, so I'm writing a book against him now to answer to him. I almost finished it, but what I wanted to show you is that either you take the most stupid and barbaric Islamist people and the most intellectual and refined and clever philosophical, they all dream about the end of us, the Jews. End of the Jews, end of the Judaism.
Are these Arabs or just Muslim people?
Let's say they are the people in Gaza, okay, the Hamas, but we'll speak about this later. But I will speak about Muslim and Islam more than Muslim. But it was just to show you that even the intellectual, the great intellectual, can dream about the end of Judaism, and even the very barbaric Islamists dream about the end of the Jews. So it's a hatred that goes from the bottom to the top of everybody. So we have to understand. My first question: why? Why is that? It's very peculiar. You won't find this problem in any about any other race or people or culture. It's very, very peculiar about Judaism.
Keep the microphone you can use.
I don't know.
Very hard to hear.
You don't hear me?
I hear you one back here.
No, I speak louder. Okay. So the first question I'm asking myself and I'm asking yourself is why? Why is this it? You know, I was born in 1963 in Paris, and I have never in my life really suffered from antisemitism. I must be honest. I only remember one instance when I was about 12 years old, and there was a boy in a gymnastic class. He called me a dirty Jew. It happened to me once when I was young, so I still remember because it had happened only once. So I kicked him, and we had a fight, and that was it. I gave him a lesson, and that was it. Compared to what my parents had experienced during the war, they wear the yellow star and everything, it was nothing. So I cannot say that I experienced anti-Semitism in my life. This is when I was 12 years old. When I was a little bit older, maybe around 14 years old, my grandmother, the mother of Bernard and the mother of my father, who is Bernard's brother, we were in a trip with all the cousins, nephew and nieces in Israel, and my father said, Mama, tell them our story during the war. We were teenagers, me and my cousin. And she told us the whole story about the war, how they had to hide, how they had to flee, the Germans, it was in Paris, of course, and how my aunt, Bernard, and my father's elder sister was deported to Auschwitz. I was 14 years old. I never knew the story before. I was too young to understand. And from this day and from this time, there was a question that I asked myself, knowing the story of my own family. And the question was why? I was a teenager, but I asked myself, why? What's the problem? Me, I am Stéphane Zagdanski. I live in Paris. I was living in France. I'm a nice Jewish boy. I don't hate nobody. I had a good education. I was taught not to hate nobody, no racism, no xenophobia, no nothing. And somewhere in the world, very far from me, there are people who hate me just because I'm Jewish. I was traumatized as a teenager to ask myself why. So it's just to tell you that this question, why, which is a kind of philosophical question about antisemitism, terrified me and intrigued me and haunted me from a very long time. the most difficult question to answer. So we'll begin tonight with an easier question first, before answering to why. And as Bernard told you, and as you may know, according to the rational, Cartesian, Occidental logic, every question has its answer. But in Jewish thought, in Judaism, every question has its other question. So the easiest question about anti-Semitism, it's the other question. I mean the one that I didn't write. The question I still didn't write and didn't ask, and it's not why, it's not when, it's not where, it's not who, it's not where, it's when. This is the easiest question to answer first, to begin. When did anti-Semitism begin? When? Apparently not during Greek antiquity. How do we know that there was no anti-Semitism in the Greek antiquity? Because the father of philosophy, Aristotle, we know by one of his disciples that he liked the Jews very much. The guy is a very important guy. He's the father of philosophy in all the world, Aristotle. It was in 384 and 322 before Common Era, before the Christian era. So 4 centuries before the Christian era, so it's a long time ago. And one of his disciples, called Clearchus of Soli from Cyprus, another philosopher, he reported a conversation in which Aristotle spoke to him, to his disciple, about a Jew that he met, a Jew from Palestine, 4th centuries before the Common Era, you understand? So for a very long time ago. And Aristotle, the father of philosophy, told his disciple, the man I met was a Jew from Coele, Syria, which was the name then of Palestine, Eretz Israel. These people, the Jews, they descended from the Indian philosophers. It's not true. But what he meant, we didn't descend from the Jews. We don't descend from Indian philosophers. But Aristotle, the father of philosophy, meant these people, the Jews, they are real philosophers, like you and me, the Greek. And why? Because they only think and speak and question about their God. They are not interested in common problems. They speak about the God day and night, which is true. That's what was in the Torah and in the Midrash and in the Mishnah, even before the Talmud, etc. So he understood that because the Jews speak only about the God, their God, our God, they are philosophers. They are clever people. So, as you understand, Greeks were not anti-Semites. So it didn't begin in the Greek antiquity, for sure. For sure. Was it during the Roman Empire? So a little bit later, but before the apparition of Christianity. Roman Empire before the apparition of Christianity. Were the Roman anti-Semites? Yes or no? No? You say no? You're right. You know that we know a little bit more about the Romans than the Greek, because the Romans are in the Talmud, in the Gemara. They speak a lot about the Romans, so we know them. We know them pretty well. Some of the emperors, for instance, they were against the Jews. You know them. They destroyed the temple, but some of them were not against the Jews. For instance, we know in the Gemara, in the Talmud, that there was an emperor who said to Rabbi Tanchum, let's become one people, we the Roman and you the Jews. Let us be all one people. It's in Sanhedrin 39a. It's in the Gemara, in the Talmud. And Rabbi Tanchum, you don't say no to an emperor, otherwise he kills you. So he said, okay, let's become one people. The problem is we are already circumcised. And you Roman people, you are not circumcised. So you have to circumcise. We can't go back. We are already circumcised. So, okay, well, let's become one. That's true. Let's become one people, but you have to circumcise. And the emperor said, oh, that's a very clever answer. And it's a very logical answer. But the problem is you were right and I'm wrong. With your answer, you close my mouth, and you don't do that to an emperor because I'm your king. So I have to kill you for your answer. It's logical. You're right. We should circumcise, but I don't like your answer because you didn't answer in the proper way to a king. I'm the emperor. So I will throw you to the lions, and they did. And because Rabbi Tanchum was protected by God, the lions didn't hit him. So there was around the emperor and all these people in the room an heretic, maybe a Christian, we don't know. The Talmud says a min it's an heretic. We didn't like Jews, we didn't like nobody. They said, oh, it's because they are not hungry that they don't hit him, the lions. So a guy from the emperor's suit said, okay, let's try with the heretic. And they throw the heretic to the lion den, and they hit him. So they were hungry, but the Rabbi Tanchum was protected. And there is also another very famous Caesar, like in a Gladiator, the movie, who was called Antoninus in Latin, very famous. And he loved the Jews. He was called in Latin Antony the Frum in Yiddish, in Hebrew. Antony Pius. He was very frum. He loved religion and he loved to discuss with Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi. He was a disciple. He wanted to be it's another one. It's not the first one, emperor. And he loved the Jews and he wanted to be the disciple of Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi. And that's another page of the Talmud in the Gemara, in Avodah Zarah, Tenha. The Gemara says and teaches us, every day Antoninus would minister to Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi. He would feed him and give him to drink. The emperor was giving drink to the rabbi. So he was so respectful with his rabbi. And when Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi wanted to ascend to his bed, Antoninus would bend down in front of the bed and say to him, ascend upon me to your bed, Rabbi. And Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi said in response, it's not proper conduct to treat the king with this much disrespect. You are my king, you are the king, you are the emperor, I can't do that to you. And this is in the Talmud. I'm not inventing it. This is in our sacred books. And Antoninus said, oh, that I were set as a mattress under you in the world to come. I would be happy to be a mattress for you in the world. So we have another answer. Was it during the Roman antiquity that anti-Semitism began? No. And even the very serious, this is serious, this is from the Talmud, but even the serious, encore une autre série. That's Antoninus the Pius, that's him. He existed for La prochaine. Okay. Even a very serious historian of anti-Semitism, French, from Russia, but he was studying in French. I met him when he was very old, now he's dead, a very nice guy. He wrote the history of anti-Semitism, and this is what he says to us about the Roman Empire. The masses during the Roman Empire, the Roman times, were indifferent to the Jews and harbored no particular prejudice against them. So we have the proof, the historical proof that there was no anti-Semitism during the Roman Empire. As for those who made a profession of writing, they had already, the writers, the Latin writer, they had already noted the Jews' close solidarity. So they say the Jews, they have a kind of a strong solidarity between them. Just like now we have. But for 2,000 and even more years ago, it was already true. And they noticed it. The Roman writer, the Latin writer. And this is what the historian teaches us. And the Jews themselves, he says, were as diverse as possible, but fundamentally, whether in the diaspora or in Palestine, they earned their living by the sweat of their brow. They were working people, the Jews in the Roman Empire. And another historian notes, considering the empire as a whole, the Jewish population largely consisted of common folk. So we know that the Jews were considered as normal common folk, no anti-Semitism at all. Even some Jews were highly valued professional soldiers in the Roman army, fighting or standing guard on the empire's frontiers. There were also Jewish officials, sometimes of very high rank, within the imperial hierarchy. One could find Jewish knights, Roman knights, and senators, even senators, Jewish senators, as well as Jewish legates. So we can now answer the second question, the other question. When not in the Greek antiquity and not during the Roman Empire. So when exactly did anti-Semitism appear? To answer this first question, you have to ask yourself another question, other question, which is where? But not where did anti-Semitism appear? Where did it not appear? Is there a place in history where there was never anti-Semitism? And the answer is
Asia.
exactly. Are you good? You read my conference before? No, you're good.
Asia.
Asia. In Asia, photo suivante. Oh, these are Jews. These are our brothers and sisters, Jews, from China. And the same historian, Leon Poliakov, that I showed you the cover of his book before, he says the Jews of China, as someone said in the 18th century, he discovered that there were priests who came to China and discovered that there were Jews, a lot of Jews in China, and say there were provincial governors, the Jews in China, ministers of state, scholars, doctors, some owned vast land, some of them were very rich and had vast land. No problem with the Chinese people. Never. Never one problem. They had establishment in Hangzhou, Ningpeng, Beijing, and Ningqiu, and Kaifeng, where is it? Kaifeng, exactly. And same thing in India. In India and in Asia, in whole Asia, and in China, there was not one iota, 1 ounce of anti-Semitism. Never. So now, you have already answered to 2 questions. Where, when, and where not in Asia. So the answer to the question is easy to find and to guess. It began with Christianity in the Roman Empire of the 1st century of Common Era. It began then. We are sure of it now. It began with the Christians, the first Christians. So you understand, I'm asking questions just to make the first question, why, a little bit more easier to answer. Now we have to understand why the Christians were the first anti-Semites in the world. And after, of course, 6 centuries after, came the Muslims. But first were the Christians. Merci. What is their common point? So we have now one answer. It began with Christianity, and with Islam. It re-began with Islam 6 years later. And only there, which is a larger area already. The Christian Empire and the Muslim Empire, they are big empires, a lot of people, but it began with them. What is their common point? Christians and Muslims.
Derived from the Torah. Basically, think they're the improvement on the Torah.
Exactly.
Does he work for you?
No, I don't know him.
I know the answer.
But I'm going to work for him.
He's got a sidekick over there.
So one of their common points, you're right, is that they both were born from Judaism. Christian comes from Judaism. And Islam comes from Judaism too. That's strange. The worst haters of Jews comes from Judaism. They became who they became because of Judaism. Not because of Judaism, because they had the idea because of Judaism. And another common point is that they had the idea that there is a single truth for all mankind. They were universalists. We, the Jews, we believe in the truth from our God, but we don't think that we have to tell this truth and to force all the other cultures and people in the world to believe in our truth. Not at all. The common point between Christianity and Islam is that they believe in one truth, and this truth is the only truth, and they have to impose it to everybody else. That's why they went to Asia, to Africa, the Christians, to South America, to Christianize, to evangelize everybody. And the Muslims, they did the same.
Totalitarian.
They were proselytes. That's the common point. The Chinese, they were not proselytes. The Asians, they were not proselytes. This guy is a very, very great, he's a Jewish historian, a very great specialist of Islam. He is a Jewish from Great Britain, but he knows Islam very well. And this is what he wrote in this book, Islam and the West. Christendom and Islam are, in chronological sequence, the second and third attempts to create a world religion. That's their common point. They wanted to create a world religion. The first was, of course, Buddhism. Buddhism also wanted to create a world religion. But they were not proselytes. It's not the same thing. Among two other ancient peoples, the Jews and the Persians, religious teachers and leaders developed universalist notions which were later to have the profoundest influence and importance. But, so everybody thinks that what he thinks and what he thinks is the truth, is valuable for the whole world. But that's one thing to think that what you believe is valuable for the whole world, and wanting to impose it to the whole world. You understand? It's not the same thing. And this guy says, Bernard Lewis says, but neither group, Persian and Jews, made any sustained attempt to teach these notions to others or to convert them to their faith. The idea that there is a single truth for all mankind and that it is the duty of those who possess it to share it with others and to force others to believe in it begins with the advent of Christianity and reappears with the rise of Islam. Both Christianity and Islam shared this new and almost unprecedented idea that they were the unique possessors of the whole of God's truth. They also shared, or rather disputed, because they were enemies one with the other, Christians and Muslims, a common territory, Southwest Asia, Northern Africa, and Mediterranean Europe. That's where they were their empires. That's where anti-Semitism grew. It's a big territory already. So, we have one, comment dire, un indice en anglais?
Indication.
We have one indication, merci Bernard, very interesting, is that there are political and theological consequences of this monolithic conception of truth. One truth for everybody. One truth. That's what they think, the Christians and the Muslims. And there are political and theological consequences of this belief. Because it manifests itself in the form of a universalist proselytism that seeks to abolish all differences among all cultures. If you think you have the one truth, and there is only one truth, you think that all the others are liars. All the others that don't believe in your truth, they are liars, and you have to force them to believe in your truth. Why? Because there is only one truth, not two, not three. This is, for example, encapsulated in one sentence, very famous sentence from the Apostle Paul, so Christian, one of the fathers of the Christianity. He said, "There is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither bond, slave, nor free, there is neither male nor female." It was kind of the first walk, in a way. Mm-hmm. It was in the first century of the Common Era. No Jew, no Greek. He didn't say we don't like the Jews because they don't think like it. He said no Jews, no Greek, no pagan, no male, no female, no differences anymore. No slave, no free man. For you are all one in Jesus. This is a sentence from the New Testament. Okay? So you see the idea. We are all one, so no differences. We are all brothers, we are all sisters. Okay, but I want to be Jew. No, there are no Jew. Okay, I want to be Greek. No, there are no Jew, no Greek. No differences anymore. We are all one in Jesus. Mm-hmm. And if I don't believe in Jesus, okay, I kill you. Mm-hmm. You understand? And it was the same thing with Muslims. 6 years later, there is a surat. It's a kind of magical trick, if you want. No differences anymore between human beings. We all believe in one truth. Which one? Mine. That's what the Christian said first, and that's what the Muslim said also. And what is written in Quran, it's a surah, the third surah, titled The Family of Imam. Abraham was neither a Jew nor a Christian, but he was a true believer. In Arabic, they say Hanif, devoted to the faith of his fathers, submitted to God. He said, Abraham, the Abraham that the Jews speak about in the Torah, in their Torah, that's what Muhammad said. He was a real Muslim because he was submitted to God. And submitted to God, submitted in Arabic means it's Muslim. So, the Islam said the first to believe in God were not the Jews, not the Christians, they were the Muslims. So we are the first, not the Jews. This brings us back to the main question that I first asked, why anti-Semitism? We now see where, when it appeared, and what's the common point between two different religions, Christianity and Islam, but we don't have the first answer to the first question, the most important, why? In a way, without even realizing it, you have already had a glimpse of the answer through this cascade of questions that I asked that makes up my presentation. Why, when, where, who, why not? That's what the Kabbalah calls, the Jewish mystic, calls the wisdom, which is also the wisdom in Hebrew, it's Chokhmah, you know that. And the Kabbalah said, Chokhmah, you can also turn it in another way. You have a meaning of what the way we we play with the truth, because we can twist it, and it becomes a koachma, chokhma, koachma, the power of the question. That's what we do, Jews. We take a word, we turn it upside down, and it says to us something else. Chokhmah, wisdom, becomes power of the question. So we Jews, we like the questions. We love the questions. We love questioning. We don't want to answer. We want to question and question and question. This is what's written in the Tanya. The Tanya, the great book, the great Kabbalistic book of the Lubavitch. It says, this is what it says about Chokhmah. You know Chokhmah is the first letter of Chabad. Chokhmah, wisdom, Bina, understanding, and Da'at, knowledge. So it's very important in Jewish thought. Chokhmah, wisdom, is the source of intelligence and understanding and is positioned above Bina, comprehension, which represents intellectual grasp and comprehension. Chokhmah, however, transcends them and serves as their source. Chokhmah is above Bina, wisdom is above comprehension. And the Tanya said, it's not me, the Tanya, note the composition of the word Chokhmah. Koach ma, power, koach, of the word, of the question. That is, what has not yet been grasped, understood, or intellectually sized. What has not been yet understood, it has power. It's not a failure not to understand something. It has power because you want to understand, then you ask why. Or you ask ma, what in Hebrew. And asking is good. Asking gives you strength and vitality. Koach ma. When you say koach in Hebrew, it's a strong word. It's a real force. And the Tanya continues. This is why within it, the light of the blessed Ein Sof, which is God in his eternal, incomprehensible reality. The God, who is God? What is God? We don't know. It's the Ein Sof, without end. It's infinity. So you can ask until tomorrow and until whenever, what is God? You will never have the answer. You can have some answers, but not the final answer. That's why there is a power of the question, because you are asking who and what is God. You won't have the answer, but you have the pleasure of asking. That's what Judaism is about, asking about God. You remember that's what the Greek noticed already. They like to think and to question about their God. That's true. So it is a light, God, that can never be fully comprehended by any thought whatsoever. Thus, it fulfills the questioning force. The inaccessibility of God, who is invisible, our God, he is invisible and highly hidden, makes Judaism the religion of questioning. The Jewish God is a God who provokes questions, and it's a good thing. God provokes questions, since God himself is a questioning being. Our God, Hashem, is a questioning God. He asks questions. Example. God asked to Adam in Bereshit, in the Genesis. God called out, Hashem called out the human and said to him, "Where are you?" After the first sin. That's in Bereshit, in the beginning of Bereshit. Vayikra Hashem Elohim el Adam, vayomer lo, Hayika. It's a question. Where are you? And the rabbis, they asked, doesn't God know everything? He knew, of course, where he was. But he wanted to ask him, to teach him a lesson. Ask yourself what you did. Ask yourself what it means, what you did by hitting the So God is a question. Our God, the Jewish God, it's a questioning God. And there are a lot of other pages in the Bible where God asks questions. Same thing with Cain. When Cain killed Abel, his brother, first murder of history, he said to him, "Where is Abel, thy brother?" Cain just killed him. And he said also to Balaam, in another part of the Bible, "What men are these with thee?" So God asked questions. And about the first question about to Adam, the Rashi, the great Rashi, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzhaki, said, of course God knew where he was. Adam. He was hidden because he was ashamed. And he said, I was ashamed because I saw that I was naked. And God asked him another question. Who told you you were naked? How did you learn you were naked? And so God, says Rashi, asks the first question to open up a conversation with him, with Adam, that he should not become confused in his reply. If he, God, were to pronounce punishment against him, all of a sudden, it was to go slowly. I'm asking yourself, where are you? I'm going to punish you. But if I'm going to punish you like that, it's a little bit too hard. So I'm asking you a question. Same thing with Cain, same thing with all the prophets. God asks questions. Same thing to Chava, the first woman of the world. What? Hashem said to the woman, Vayomer Hashem Elohim Leisha, Ma zot asit? What did you do? It's a question. What did you do? It's a question. So you understood. God is the questioning God. Our God is the questioning God. And the same thing comes again with Moses. So now it's becoming serious. Once the conversation is opened by God's question, that's what Rashi explained, the Jews question their God in return. So in a way, God asks questions to teach us how to ask questions. And that's what happened with Moses in the burning bush. When Moses discovered God, and when began the Judaism, in a way. A messenger of Hashem, says the Torah, appeared to him in a blazing fire out of a bush. He gazed, and there was a bush all aflame. Moses gazed. There was a bush all aflame. Yet the bush was not consumed. So Moses was stunned. He didn't understand. And he began to ask questions about that. Moses said, I must turn aside to look at this marvelous sight. Why doesn't the bush burn up? Vayomer Moshe el Elohim, mi anochi ki alech. No, excuse me, it's before. Vayomer Moshe asurana ve'ere et amare agadol azeh madua lo yiv'ar azni. Why? Madua, this bush burns and doesn't consume. Madua is a very important word in Hebrew. It's in the Torah, and it means why. So the most important prophet of Judaism, Moses, he asked questions. He was not the guy who came, just like Mahomet, for instance, and said, I know all the answers. This is what God told me, you must do this and this and this. He was questioning also. In Hebrew, the word why, that Moses asked, it means ma yadua. Madua, it means ma yadua. Ma, again, what? What is known? It means that when you ask what is known. You ask about knowledge. Just like in the Koachma, in the force of the question, you ask about it. It's not just you ask because you are dumb, because you are stupid. No, when you ask, you are very clever. Because you ask because you want to understand. And it's better to want to understand than to understand. And that's what I taught my daughter, Abigail, who is here, since she is 5 years old. I said the most clever child is the child who asks always, why? Asking questions is more important than answering. And there are other questions that Moses asked to God. For example, when God says to him, go and free my people, go to Pharaoh and you will tell him this and that. And Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and free the Israelites from Egypt? This is in the Torah, in the Bible. Who am I? Another question. And then, again, another question. This is what the Bible says. Moses said to God, when I come to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is God's name? What shall I say to them? So God gives him, Hashem gives him an order. Go and free my people. And Moses, instead of saying, okay, I will obey your order, I go and I will free, he asks questions. Strange guy. But what am I going to tell them? It's like it's like in a movie by Woody Allen in a way. It's almost funny, this passage of the Torah. Okay, I'll go, but if they ask me your name, what am I going to say? And what does God answer us? No, yeah, but what did he answer God? He said, my name is, and God says to Moses, Eye asher eye. Thus shall you say to the Israelites, Eye sent me to you. He didn't say, my name is. He didn't say the things clearly. He said, God said, Hashem said, Eye asher eye. And I am asking you, is that an answer? Even if you try to translate it, Eye asher eye, in Hebrew or in French or in English, it could mean, I will be what I will be. Tell them, the Israelites, I will be Eye. It's not a good translation, but it's like my English, it's not very good, but it's the best we have. Tell them, I will be, sent me to free you from Egypt. Is that an answer? Is that a clear answer to the name of God? No, of course not. Because all the Jews in the world for centuries answer to that answer from God by questioning again, what does that mean? There are pages and pages and pages in the Talmud, in the Kabbalah. What does that mean? Eye asher eye. We don't know. But we ask, and we love to ask, and we love to try to guess what it means.
Would you consider what the Pharaoh did to the Jews then anti-Semitic?
I'm coming to that.
But you said there was no anti-Semitism in ancient Egypt.
Yeah, not in ancient Egypt. Yeah, it was not really anti-Semitism. It was slavery. It was not good.
That's a pretty much.
But they had other slaves, not only the Jews. They had other slaves. So they were bad, they were nasty, but it wasn't really anti-Semitism. They didn't like the Jews, but they didn't like their other slaves. Also, the Roman had slaves, and the Greek had slaves. That's bad, but that's not. You can't call it anti-Semitism.
We were good workers.
They were good, maybe. Who knows? Another question, because we weren't there, so we don't know. There is another particularity of the question for us Jews. You will understand later what's the link between this, everything I'm telling now, and anti-Semitism. But to tell you, it's very important to understand that even in the Torah, in the Bible, questioning literally nourishes the people of Israel. We love to question, we love questioning, we eat questioning. It nourishes us. How do I know? I know because everybody has heard about the manna. When the Hebrew were in the desert and they had nothing to eat, and they said to Moses, we are going to die here, Moses asked God to make a miracle, and the miracle came. And it was the manna. The manna, it was in each morning, because of the dew, there was the manna. And what is the manna? It's a question. Why is it called the manna in Hebrew? Because they asked, what did they ask? The Hebrew, when they saw for the first time the manna, man who? What is that? Man who? That's what the Torah says. Another question, man who? And they took it and they ate it. And it was delicious, says the commentaries. Delicious. And every manna, when you took it, if you liked honey, it had the taste of the honey. If you liked strawberry, it had the taste of the strawberry. It has any taste that you like for each and every Israelite. Just like a baby, the milk of his mother has all the tastes in the world. Not one taste. Remember what we said in the beginning, not one truth. We are not the people of one truth. The manna, it had all the tastes. And it was very precious. But you couldn't keep it for yourself. If you keep it, if you had two manas because we were afraid of being hungry the other day, it was a spoil. That's the manna, the question. Don't keep the question for yourself. Or it will get moisty, or moisir, pourrir.
Spoiled.
Huh?
Spoiled.
Spoiled. It will be spoiled. You have a question, ask it. So now, what happens with the two other ones, Christians and Islam? The Christians, they believe really that they consume, they eat their God's flesh and blood. They drink the blood of the God. That's what they do in the churches from 2,000 years. It's a religious belief in the Christianity that you eat Jesus because he was the Son of God. That's what they believe. So they eat it. We don't eat our God. We eat the Christian.
And you drink his
And you drink his blood.
Shake it up.
What?
You shake it up, you have it.
Yeah.
And no one questions it.
No. No one questions it.
Why should it? Have it.
And if Muslims submit themselves and others to their God's word without any questioning, because it's not an habit in Islam to question a lot, you can question, people question, but only to answer in the right way, which is not questioning. And if you question in another way, either they killed you or they submitted you. Jews, on the contrary, consume and delight in the questions their God sends them. They delight and they consume, they eat, they nourish themselves with the questions that God sends them. So manna, it's not just a mysterious food. It is a mystery made edible. Man who? What is it? The question turned into sustenance. Thought, because question it's also thinking. It's not just questioning, it's thinking. When you question, you begin to think. Not when you answer. When you answer, you end thinking. You finish thinking. That's something, the nourishing of the questioning, and even the joy and the delight of questioning that we, all of us have heard during the Seder of Pesach. That was the first of the Lubavitcher Rebbe who wrote the Tanya. That's après. That's the question Madua that I spoke about. That's it. C'est bon. When you see a little boy or a little girl, a child, it's always questioning. It loves to question. He loves or she loves to question. A baby, not a baby, a child. And why? And why? And why? Daddy, mommy, why? And what is that? What is this? And they enjoy it. And what is said in the Haggadah of Pesach? The Torah speaks of 4 children, one wise, one wicked, one simple, and one who does not know how to ask. He does not know how to ask. He is dumb. He is dumb. He is simple. Why? Because you didn't teach him how to ask. It's not you didn't teach him what life is about. That's not what we teach to our children.
Sounds like Passover.
What?
That's Pesach.
Yeah, Pesach, that's right. So now we begin to have not answers, God forbid, but but we have indications. In the 2 other religions, the religions that were anti-Semites, there is one way, one truth, no more questions. For example, in John's Gospel, Jesus, before dying, says to his apostles, and now I quote the Gospel, "And whither I go you know, and the way you know." He says to his apostles, you know where I go now. They are going to kill me, but you know where I go. He meant I go to paradise. I go to meet my Father. And his apostle Thomas said unto him, Lord, we know not whither you goes, and how can we know the way where you go? Where can you know? So he's a good Jew. He has questions. We don't know where. How can we know where you go, you Jesus, now that you are going to die? And Jesus says unto him, and it's a very famous sentence by Jesus, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes unto the Father but by me. You see the difference? I am the way, one truth, and one life. It's me, Jesus. And if you want to go to my Father, Hashem, the Hashem of my fellow people, Jews, you go through me. There is no other way. You see the difference between our way of questioning and the way of the Christians? I am the way. In Greek, it's called because it was written in Greek. You know the Gospel. It's called odos, and it's a little bit like our halacha. It means also the way, in a way, halacha, the path or the way. But our way, halacha, it's not one truth. The way of the Christians is one truth. It's said in the Gospel. It's not me that says it. It's not me telling you. And if there is one truth and one way to get to this truth, it means what? It can be imposed, taught, or transmitted, but it can't be shared. It's not the same thing. You can tell someone, I will tell you what Jesus said, and I will teach you what he said. But you're not transmitting him, because you're not teaching him to ask questions. You don't split the truth. You don't give him, your child for instance, something that can be questioned. It cannot be questioned at all. Never. In Judaism, we love to split the word of God. God sent us a word, a sentence, and we split it. We split it in many explanations. It's a mitzvah to split it. And that comes from the from the verse of the prophet Jeremiah. Behold, my word is like fire, declares Hashem, and like a hammer that shatters rock. God says in the prophet Jeremiah, my word is like fire and like a hammer that shatters rock. It means my word, you have to split it. You have to question it. You have to share it in different parts. You have to give a lot of explanation, a lot of interpretations. You see the difference? But when the power of question, the koachma, shakes the non-Jewish one-way truth, it shatters the one-way truth and breaks it into two branches. When the truth of the Christian or the Muslim, when they have a question, a hard question, that breaks their truth, they become two different religions. It's called a schism. Protestants and Catholics, for instance. Or Shiites and Sunnis. We don't have that. Sometimes we have fights about amongst us, just like between the Mitnagdim and the Hasidim, but we don't make two religions different, or three religions. Never. Because we like to ask. It goes with the fact of the pleasure of asking. You see, that's a Christian creed that imposes its truth, that evangelizes people in Indian people. Jews never did that. We never did that to other people. You see, it's an old drawing. I don't know, maybe from the 18th century. And you see the submission of these poor people, these poor Indians. That's the way of the two other religions, because they don't like to ask and they don't like questioning, and we like it. And it goes very deep and very far, this, in anti-Semitism. In the Sefer HaZohar, Zohar HaKadosh, the sacred mystical book of the Jews, they say, above the seven spaces there is one that is eminent and inaccessible, guiding and illuminating them, the whole of the world, while itself remaining unknown, dwelling within the question. That's what's said in what's written in the Zohar. God is dwelling within the question. Kaima b'sha'alta, standing as a question. So it's in the Torah, it's in the Talmud, and it's in the Zohar. God is standing into the question. Why? Because it is unreachable, because He, God, is so enclosed and so profound that it becomes a subject of wonder. And is called who? Me. A name of God. God, as you know, the Jewish God has several names. Hashem, Hamakom, the name, the place. And who? It's one of the names of God. Himself, God, is a living question. Who? What did the Antisemites about that? Nouvelle solution. The Antisemites, they can't stand the standing question. So they imagine what? The Nazis, what did they imagine to finish with the questioning? A final solution to the Jewish question. You know all this sentence. It's the name of the extermination of the Jews in German. You have it here. It's an order from Hitler. You see? And they say we are going to do der Losung der Judenfrage. Judenfrage, the Jewish question, we are going to finish it. You see the link now? Even themselves, the Nazis, they said it. They said, we want to finish the Jewish question. We don't like the questioning. We don't like the question. We want to eradicate it. Words speak by themselves. You see? That's the Nazis saying it, not me. They want to finish the question. And there is a story told by Primo Levi. Primo Levi was a Jewish Italian guy, great writer, who went to Auschwitz. And he wrote in his biography, Is This a Man the Truth? He said a story. He said, when I was in Auschwitz, driven by thirst, I hired a fine icicle, you know, icicle, outside the window. And I was thirsty, so within hand's reach, I opened the window and broke off the icicle, but at once, a large, heavy guard, Nazi, of course, crawling outside brutally, snatched it away from me. And I asked him, I was thirsty, I was just trying to drink icicle, nothing. And the guy, the Nazi guy, he said, I took it and threw it away. You won't have it. And I just said one word, warum? That's what Primo Levi is saying. Warum? Why? In German, it was the only word I knew. Warum? And the Nazi guard said, here it's kein warum. Here in Auschwitz, there is no why. Don't ask. You see? So, we begin to have a good idea of why they hate us. But why do they hate the question? They could hate us for another reason, but they hate us because we question, and we love to question. Why? Let's have a look now at the beginning of Islam. We know that Muhammad, he tried to convert the Jews of Medina. You know that's what the Muslims say themselves. And the Jews of Medina, of course, they didn't want to be converted. So they refused, and he attacked them. and he beat them, he conquered them, and he slaughtered them. After he had conquered them. That's what they said in the Quran and in the Islamic text. Same thing with Jesus. Jesus said at the beginning, I come only for Israel. Jesus said in the Gospel, I am here only for the, how did they do this? For my fellow Jews. I don't come for anybody else. So at the beginning, the Christian, the first Christian and the first Muslim, they love the Jews. They want to convince us that we have to think like them, which means we have to think that the way they think, we think, because they come from Judaism. Jesus was a Jew, and he had a certain interpretation of the Judaism, of the Torah, and he said, come and be like me and think like me. And they refused to be like that. But at the beginning, he was not against the Judaism. He was against its questioning. Stop questioning. I have the answer. I am the answer. Think like me. We are all Jews. You think like me, and that's good. No. Okay, thank you. We don't want to think like you. We don't want to be like you. We want to keep on questioning. Okay, so they invented that they killed the Jesus, the Jews, and so now we have to kill them because they killed Jesus because he wanted to answer and they didn't want it, which is not true. Historically, it's not true. But that's what the Christians say to the Jews for 2,000 years. You killed our God. Yes, it's the sentence by Jesus. It's in the Gospel Matthew. I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. I'm not here for the Goyim. I'm here for the Jews. But I want to tell them my truth. And Muhammad did the same thing. At the beginning, he wanted to become a Jew. He didn't want to become a Jew. He had the idea of who he was because of Judaism. He said, oh, that's a good idea that they have the Jews. One God. Okay. And we say, see, we have one God. And we pray towards Jerusalem. Good idea. We pray towards Jerusalem. And we wash our hands before eating. That's what they do, the Muslims. And we don't eat all the animals. Some animals we don't eat. They don't eat pork, we don't eat pork. So you see, Jews, we are like you. Become like us. Convert to what Allah told me. And the Jews say, no, thank you. And then he fights them and he kills. It means that at the beginning, they don't hate the Jews because they are Jews. They want to become Jews instead of the Jews. That's the problem. When you want to answer questioning once for all, it means that you want to become the only answer for all the questioning. You want to take place of all the answers. And that's exactly what the Nazis did. They wanted to become the chosen people. Because in their mind, being the chosen people is to have the answer, the ultimate answer. That's not what it means for us. But that's what they think that it means.
The new improved version.
Exactly. 2.0 version of Judaism. Updated version of Judaism. And for them, an updated version, it means a version without questioning. Now there is I'm finishing my lecture. There is a more understandable way of understanding the problem with questioning. We believe in the force of questioning, the power of the question, koachma, chochma, koachma. Wisdom is the power of question. Christians and Muslims, they wanted to convert everybody, the whole world, to their faith. They wanted to build an empire. And you can't build an empire just by questioning. It's impossible. If you don't impose your solutions and your truth to the people you want to conquer, you don't conquer them. You can't build an empire. It's impossible. You have to be in the Antwerp to build an empire. So the Jews were, in a way, in their path to build their empire. Same thing with the Christians. Questioning is against imperialism in the deepest meaning of the word. And they saw also not only that we question, and that we are the people of the questioning, we are the people of the Torah, but we are also the people of the questioning. They saw also that we love to question, and we enjoy to question, just like the children. It's a real joy to question, to ask. We call it to study, the Talmud. But when we say study, it's not like when you say to your kid, go to school. No, I want to go on holidays. No, you have to go to school. We love to go to the yeshiva and study. It's a real joy. It's called Simchat Torah, the joy of the Torah. So we have the joy, and when you have the joy, and when you have the secret of the joy, which is not the answer of the joy, it's the questioning. The secret of the joy is go to the text and ask the text, what do you mean? What does it mean? You enjoy it. Other people, they don't like it. Other people, they hate it. When you are happy, your neighbor is not as happy as you are. It will do the same. We don't forbid them to do their own questioning. But if they do their own questioning, they won't build their empires. So you have to choose. Build an empire or be joyful by questioning your text. You can do both. And we never did both. The Jews never built any empire. Which means that today, in Gaza, where is the... Vas-y, la photo d'après, la dernière photo. Encore après. Today in Gaza, when they say Israel, the Zionists, they are imperialists, they are colonizers, they stole the land of the Palestinians, it's a lie. It's a lie. Why? Because it's not the way we think. It's not the way we are. Everybody knows, here everybody knows that Israel is such a small country compared to the whole Muslim countries. So it's ridiculous to call this small country an empire or an imperialistic ideology. But you see the link between what we said from the beginning. We ask questions, so we'll never conquer the other nations. It's not our purpose, it's not our joy. Our joy is to study and to rejoice and to have our peace and that's it. And I will finish now with another last question. What is nowadays the new religion of answering, the new religion, imperialistic religion of not questioning, answering, and forcing people to believe its faith? You all know it. The new universal, colonial, and imperialistic religion today, it's science.
It's what?
Science.
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 Science. The modern science is the new religion. Everybody believes in science, even we, the Jews. But we have to be cautious about it. If we think about it, you don't, Elon Musk, he won't send a jet to Mars, to planet Mars, by questioning. In science, you have to give answers. If you don't give, you ask questions, of course, but you have to have the answers. Otherwise, you will never go to the moon, and you will never you will never build a computer. If you ask yourself, how much fuel do I need to send a rocket to Mars, you have to answer. If you don't have the answer, you will never send your rocket to Mars. It's easy to understand. Science is the religion of answering to. And that's why science is everywhere. And science is, has convinced and converted everybody to its faith. But not everybody. There is one guy that I love, that's the end, that's the conclusion of my speech. He was a Jew, of course. He was a philosopher. He died a few years ago. An American philosopher, see, good face. He was called Sidney Morgenthau. And you see there is a book in his honor. And how is it entitled? How many questions? He loved to question. And he was in a university. He wasn't the teacher, but he was listening to another teacher, British teacher. And the British teacher said, specialist of languages, he said, you know, in all the languages in the world, you can have two negations, which becomes an affirmation.
A double negative often implies a positive meaning. For example, if you say, he is not unlike his sister, two negation, he is not unlike his sister, it becomes one affirmation. He is like his sister. You understand? So this guy, the British guy, said, this is universal. In every language, if you have two negations, it becomes an affirmation. Logic, scientific. And there is no language in the world where the opposite is true, where you have two affirmations becoming a negation. Plus and plus becomes minus. If minus with minus, negation plus negation, it becomes an affirmation. But the opposite is impossible. Never, in any language in the world. I am the best teacher, the best expert of all the languages of the world. And Sidney Morgenbesser, who was at the end of the classroom, he wasn't a student, he was another teacher. He was just he just said two words, and he said, yeah. What does it mean when you say to someone, yeah?
Yeah, okay.
You're kidding me. That's bullshit. Yeah, believe it if you want. Yeah. Two affirmations, meaning a negation. So in one joke, Jewish joke, he destroyed the universal truth of his fellow teacher.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.